Right. Good morning, YouTube. How's everybody doing out there? Welcome to Friday. It's a little chilly out this way, and all the rain and snow is out your way, or most of y'all's way, as you just seen. Everybody's kicking it into the weekend and strong. I know that we have severe issues out this way. We'll get into whatever we don't get to. It looks like it was a pretty busy dump the news Friday, so lots of news dumps going on today, and links are below if we don't get to everything, and I might put a few more down there depending on what we go. But just your brief weather, it's about single digits in certain places around here. I think we're down in the teens. We're looking at about 15 degrees this morning. So winter decided to show up. It just didn't bring any rain or anything this fall. We really could have used a couple storms, but as we'll see what's going on over in California, that's definitely had an effect. So getting into that, we'll get right into it. Stay dry and warm out east, because you're definitely in the thick of it. It's all over. Coming your way, Delaware Patriots joined us out there. Definitely going to get a good dose of rain. It looks like not quite cold enough to get you any snow. It's all up in New York. Tommy Boy's got his galoshes on. Good morning. How you doing? Right on. So, yeah, California. Entire town has basically been burned down of Paradise. And there is also another fire, which if you weren't paying real close attention, you might have confused with that same fire. There's also a fire in Ventura County, similar size, just different area. But Paradise, California, what's called the Camp Fire, has basically been wiped out. Similar to the fire a couple of years ago up in the Smokies there, not Pigeon Forge, the other town. It was right next to there. We'll blow this up, though, but some of these images are similar to that Smokies fire we had a couple of years ago when it came through. So we'll get into this. Think about your preparedness plan, folks.
Structures have burned to the ground in a wildfire that rapidly exploded in size on Thursday. CAL FIRE Captain Scott McLean said the entire town of Paradise, which is about 90 miles north of Sacramento, is destroyed in what's being called the Camp Fire. Witnesses recounted the devastation, saying everything was on fire. Homes, businesses, and schools all gone. Residents literally ran for their lives. Many described getting stuck on gridlocked roads while flames closed in and being forced to get out of their car and run. At a hospital in Paradise, more than 60 patients were evacuated while some buildings were damaged by the flames, and people are desperately looking for their missing loved ones. Officials reported at least 2 firefighters and multiple residents injured. In a press conference, the Butte County Sheriff reported there have been deaths as well. Acting California Governor Gavin Newsom has declared a state of emergency in the area. The Camp Fire has burned at least 20 acres so far. Also in Southern California, multiple wildfires are causing evacuations. The Hill Fire and Woolsey fires have burned over 12,000 acres so far in Ventura County.
AT&T provides edge-to-edge intelligence.
So yeah, 2 separate fires. One started the night before the Camp Fire, and then the Hill Fire started yesterday. Quite sizable. There is some severe imagery coming out of this Camp Fire. Pretty sure that in particular they were talking about the hospital was burned down, or at least severely damaged. It's damaged enough probably to have to start all over if they can. But I didn't see, and I guess there's a Butte College there as well. So it's a pretty sizable town. California's got tons of 50,000 people, size towns around there. I would imagine it's somewhere in that neighborhood. There's 24,000 homes, so it's probably closer to 100,000 just stuck up there in the mountains. So it's a fairly sizable town, but I never saw a population number for it. But there's a lot of images here on this Weather Channel link. But there's also, we'll go over to a video somebody shot when they were driving out. It's pretty, yeah, those Pigeon Forge videos are reminding me just of Gatlinburg, when Gatlinburg burned down. And my morning coffee hasn't kicked in yet, Delaware Patriot. Did you make double pot for me? Hey, we got Barry Wood with us. Good morning. Yeah, cold here. Yeah, very cold out this way, right? You're probably in the single digits up there where you are. We're in the teens with single digits in some of the northern valleys. But yeah, this reminded me a lot of the Gatlinburg situation with a lot of these pictures and everything coming out. 50,000, it says here, 50,000 people evacuated in the Paradise area. So it's a pretty, and it's also moving across to Oroville. I had heard that parts of Oroville are being evacuated as well. But let's get this video pulled up here of the drive out of these folks. It's pretty, you'll see them. It looks like the middle of the night driving through this fire area, and then they pop out and you can see that it's daylight with the clouds of the smoke hanging forward over them. The fire chief and the police chief and some of the reports they've been talking about, they don't have an estimate of how many people got trapped inside the city. They said there's people they know are trapped inside town that they can't get to. Lots of reports of that, people using Twitter and other social media to help forward information to people they know that are stuck in places to get, watch out for the car in front of you. But I believe the way this campfire started kind of in the middle of the night, and they're just passing everybody. They're not slowing down, that's for sure. Yeah, they just pop out and it's daylight right outside the fire zone. Pretty crazy stuff. This was definitely a bug out situation that nobody probably expected when they went to bed that night, or were late in the evening hanging out at the house. This thing blew up. That's why it caught so much of the town, because it was, I guess the camp was relatively close to town. It just spread so quickly. The right winds and everything, it just went right up. And when I saw the fire line, what caught me onto it was one of the overhead. They had an overhead imagery picture I saw on Twitter of the aerial drops, and the aerial drops looked like it was protecting like the north side of town, but that's after it had already went through the town. So that was definitely a travesty beyond it. It'll be a while before they
Here at Intel, we believe
figure
that the
out,
Internet of Things will transform the way
fully know what everybody
helping people everywhere live healthier, safer, and more.
Everybody's lost in that deal. So several links below on that if you wanted to check them out. And again, there is another fire in Ventura County that was separate, so you'll probably be seeing different images that might confuse you because they're both big pillars of smoke. And with, like I said, no rain this fall, nothing has had a chance to not be dried out. So everything pretty much everything west of Salt Lake. Really, we were talking, speaking of be prepared, yesterday we were talking about at work, we're all just like, how would you get out and everything? I'm like, I'm not too worried about something like this because there's enough, everybody's seen videos. There's no tall trees around my property like you see in these areas, like where it's not only brush, but there's bigger trees and brush trees and everything else. There's not a lot of that around my area. So where it's actually, you wouldn't have this rolling in on you with all this jumping from trees to grass to trees to engulf. I said I was fairly confident I could fight it off with my garden hoses if I needed to. Everybody laughed at me, but they didn't realize I was serious. I guess you got to realize what's manageable, and what's not. Thrift good morning. How you doing? What is the Woolsey fire? They're calling the Ventura fire the Hill fire. Where's the Woolsey fire at? Is that where is that located? I haven't heard of that. Let's back this up and hear what this fella has to say here.
Is forced to leave everything behind. Some even.
Hold on here, Cletus.
Ditching their cars and getting on foot to escape the flames. Our Ken Bastida has been tracking this one for us. Ken?
Veronica Allen, how many times have we seen this, right? A fast-moving wildfire forcing an entire city to evacuate. These pictures really tell the story. Plumes of dark smoke rising up into the sky. And check out this ominous sight for drivers heading away from the fire. A massive cloud of smoke could be seen for miles as people were just trying to get out with their lives. And here's the very latest information from the fire lines. CAL FIRE says that people are still trapped in the town of Paradise. It was evacuated because of the fire, but not everyone got out. Crews are working to get the remaining people out of that town as we speak. No hard numbers, but CAL FIRE says hundreds of structures have been destroyed in Butte County. The Feather River Hospital in Paradise also had to be evacuated. Some medical buildings nearby were damaged, and a fire chief also reports that several civilians have been hurt, as well as at least 2 firefighters. Now take a look at what people were up against. This is unbelievable. Racing out of their neighborhoods, grabbing what basically is on their backs, surrounded by walls of flames. In this video from a family who escaped their home, flames and cinders crawling along the ground, up in the trees, heavy smoke. A reality check here. This looks like nighttime, but this video, believe it or not, is the middle of the afternoon, daylight.
The whole lower side of Paradise is totally engulfed in flames right now. The Pacifica, Princeton area, Neal Road, Feather River Hospital, all is engulfed in flames right now. Not one home will be left standing.
This one's called the Camp Fire, and right now it is roughly 18,000 acres or 26 square miles. It's raging just north of the town of Oroville. Governor-elect Gavin Newsom has now declared a state of emergency for that area. Here's a look at the firefight and the flames reaching the road, burned right up to the asphalt. This is in Oroville. You see a CAL FIRE helicopter in a moment here swinging in for a water drop. Dozers are on the ground clearing out dry brush. Audio from emergency dispatchers capturing the panic as people ditched their cars and took off on foot.
Fire on both sides of the road on Pearson. Yeah, we got information that people are abandoning vehicles on Skyway. We're going to start to push them out of the way.
Out of their cars because you could feel the heat coming through the windshield. Help is on the way, though. CAL FIRE is staging their trucks, their dozers, crews at Butte College. Reporter Rachel Wolf is in Butte County tonight.
It was just crazy. I mean, I just didn't know if I was going to make it.
Randy Bartell and his dog Thor drove through a wall of fire to escape the massive blaze.
Both of our driveways were completely engulfed in flames. I mean, we had to drive through. I could feel the heat in my car as I'm driving.
He was one of about 30,000 residents of Polga, Paradise, Magalia, and Concow who were under a mandatory evacuation order. The fire started at 6:30 a.m. in Polga, and by noon was more than 8,000 acres. CAL FIRE says red flag conditions with winds between 40 and 60 miles per hour caused the fire to spread quickly and complicated firefighting efforts.
When we have winds over 30 miles an hour, drops from the air are actually ineffective. So we are not using air tankers at this time. We are using water dropping helicopters.
I had a lot of people asking me on social media what had happened with Feather River Hospital. I was just told by CAL FIRE that there are some people sheltering in place and that the building has sustained some minor damage from the fire. That is the latest. We're going to get you more information and bring that to you just as soon as we can get it.
All right, the wind-fueled fire is growing. Now, wrap your head around this. The rate of 80 football fields per minute. Think of that volume that's being consumed. At last check, 18,000 acres have burned, but that number is far gone by now. At least 27,000 people are out of their homes, evacuated. Now, this fire is far from being contained. As the firefight moves into the night, we'll be back in 30 minutes with more on this. Alan, Veronica?
All right, Ken, thanks. Some Bay Area crews are already on the front lines tonight. Others are making their way there. Just a couple hours ago now, dozens of firefighters from all over the peninsula met up to form what they call an urgent need strike team.
It's so sad to see the people that are affected. I saw some people were burned and people are losing properties and homes and struggling just to evacuate. So yeah, it does affect you emotionally for sure.
Crews from Alameda County, Oakland, Fremont, and Hayward arrived this afternoon and snapped these photos. A strike team from Berkeley is also on the scene.
We are staying on top of the fast-moving wildfire in Butte County tonight.
Governor-elect Gavin Newsom has declared a state of emergency as thousands flee their homes. KPIX 5's Elizabeth Cook joins us now with the latest information from the fire lines. Liz?
Veronica, Allen, crews have been working all day long trying to get the upper hand on the Camp Fire. Air tankers are making the rounds, dropping fire retardant all over that area, as you can see there. Those flames. The fire broke out this morning north of Lake Oroville, just west of Highway 70. The fast-moving flames forced out all 27,000 people in the city of Paradise. And we just got our first images of the destruction. Take a look. You can see, well, they're coming in a minute, but there is an entire school engulfed with half the sign there burned away. We are now also seeing several homes on fire. There's a school we mentioned. We're hearing that several homes have been completely destroyed. And take a look. It shows what appears to be a small town shopping center coming up with the entire facade completely covered in flames there. It's still unclear how many exact buildings have burned. So far, the fire has scorched 18,000 acres. Crews have spent the entire day going door to door, trying to get everyone out. Ash in the sky has created some eerie scenes like this one as drivers fled their homes, leaving everything behind.
Oh, it was fast. It happened so fast. Like we went outside, we seen smoke, we thought we had time, and then it was at our house. And we had to drive through flames on both sides of the mountain.
We've learned the Feather River Hospital in Paradise also had to be evacuated. Some medical buildings nearby were damaged. The fire chief also reports several civilians have been hurt, as well as 2 firefighters.
All right, that's about the rundown as much as we're going to get. That's mostly from last night. I'm sure there's updated stuff that might come out here in the next half hour or so, of course, after we get done here. But yeah, and so I guess the Ventura fire is now called the Woolsey fire. It had been called the Hill fire in a lot of the hashtags they were using last night. So I guess they decided to get that going. But definitely check that out. Stay in the know. I know that Wild Iron Horseman is up in that Oroville area. I'm not sure which exactly. He's got different properties and he does business in certain places. I'm not sure exactly how it affects him, but I haven't got any contact with him, so I don't know what he's up to. But hopefully they get this under control and out on the soonest. If you can send us that rain from the east, that would be appreciated. Rooster Cogburn's joined us. Good morning. So you're getting all the smoke. Interesting. We were just hypothesizing yesterday about when the smoke is going to start hitting us, but it might trail north of us more into Reno area. We'll see how it goes for us here, but we're expecting to get some smoke come over the mountain. The Saints with us. Good morning. You don't think they have to worry about looters, Tommy boy? Well, maybe they don't have to worry about them because they got taken out. That'd be the best situation. Is the looters are too stupid to get out and thought they would actually get something. But there is a ton of links that the Drudge Report dropped today that are of interest. Like I said at the beginning, I put several in the bottom, but there's all kinds of little tidbits tucked in here that I thought were interesting. But obviously, there's the recount in Florida. That is the theft of the elections that's going on in Florida, Georgia, and Arizona. If you haven't noticed, continuing on the shenanigans there that probably most of you are following, but it is bizarre the lack of, I guess, accountability people can have when it comes to things like that. You should be able to just go up and arrest people for being negligent, I would think, but it doesn't work that way. You just don't find boxes of ballots without willful intent, as I would say it. I put it on the Twitter yesterday. I was like, they showed a box that they found in one of the schools. It was a polling place in Florida, and I was like, that doesn't happen without willful intent. That is not a accident. It's severe negligence at best. People need to be in jail, and they're still in there dilly-dallying like they're doing the work of the people or something. But that's going to be I don't know, a goat rope. Was that be a good way to describe it? Delaware Patriot? It is definitely a goat rope there in those states as the theft, as I would call it, continues. But other than that, we saw the encirclement of Tucker Carlson's house on Wednesday night. It was Wednesday night, right? The Antifa is up in their game even at this point. The intimidation tactics, the typical communist agenda, I guess. Their modus operandi is going down. But if you didn't see the images of video of Tucker Carlson's house the other day, it's like these fools are definitely smart enough to know what places to target because they're going places where they feel safe and they're most active, like we see in the Portland videos, where they know that people aren't going to basically in their breathing cycle because they wouldn't pull that stuff in a lot of places, but they feel safe in these gun-free zones and places where especially high-profile people don't want to be they're not as concerned about doing property damage to people that are a little more worried about their image. So I guess they're not going to come after us yet, the people low on the totem pole, but they're using their tactics to get their way for sure. There was a large-scale protest yesterday in many big cities for the supposed Mueller, protecting Mueller, they said, which is just ironic because 2 years ago they were raising Cain about Sessions being appointed. Now they consider Sessions to be somebody that can help protect Mueller in this whole debacle of an investigation. But going into this article here in the Washington Times, Antifa expanding its hit list. And it's just amazing how if this was me and Delaware Patriot getting together with some crews and going to people's houses and intimidating, we would be arrested and shut down almost immediately. I almost guarantee it. We've seen what happened when you sent fake, pipes and devices to George Soros and the Clintons and everybody else. You saw what happened there. Huge man sweep, huge, manhunt, which to be determined how that actually played out. But these people go and intimidate people in their houses, and they get to walk away. Makes you think. But this article gets into this, talk about the Tucker Carlson issue, basically threatening him over and over. His family mostly, because he was on the air, I guess, on the news, on TV, I guess, when it was all going down. Which I wouldn't have blamed her at all if she would have blown somebody's head off when they tried to knock down the door. Because apparently they did come at the front door first and at least knocked on it very strongly, maybe, if not trying to knock it down. But she should have put a couple holes in people. Maybe they learned. But it's Washington, D.C., so they probably are unarmed victims like everybody else. And this is the shortest Washington. Okay, there we go. So they're talking about different escalations for political violence, but there were 2,000 threatening incidents and communications were made against members of Congress last year, which are the least of our concerns. But it says it's nearly double the 902 from 2016. And we saw people getting shot on softball fields and stuff. Hey, locked and loaded, Justin, how you doing out there? Yeah, they're definitely domestic tourists there, Justin. I guess I'm a domestic tourist. They're domestic terrorists. I guess there is a difference. So I go into this article here talking about the different issues with escalation of violence. Threats have extended to anyone entering the political arena. The Ford character that falsely accused Kavanaugh is receiving death threats and unable to return to work. She works in California. How could she should be safe? What could she really be worried about? The Lois Lerner, everybody forgot about her. IRS official Lois Lerner told a federal judge this month that she's still getting threats from her Tea Party scandal 5 years ago. But when you steal everybody's money from them, they're going to be kind of angry at you. So that may be kind of expected, right? She says she expects a new surge of threats if her actions become publicly known. Well, if she would be put under the prison like she belongs, you wouldn't have to worry about it. You'd be completely protected. You'd be completely safe. Belong in prison, woman. You're lucky. They're definitely making this out like the so they're comparing all the different sides here. They got the fellow that just sent out the 16 fake devices, which were confirmed to be fake and no triggers and no possibility of harm, which still haven't got to the bottom of that. You have the guy that shot the softball guy, yada, yada, different examples. Then they go back all the way to Charlottesville. This is a very inconclusive article with very little meat to it. This is not a report. This is just a bulletized list. Reporting gets so weak nowadays. It just ends with the statement about what happens in Charlottesville. There's no analysis here whatsoever or lead up. Reporting is terrible these days. But yeah, they don't say who Antifa expanded its hit list to, but they did put out a hit list of expanded targets yesterday. All your usual suspects that are on TV primarily, and some politicians. But after the Carlson thing, they're like, yeah, we're coming after you like Hannity and other people. And it's just like, how much more in the pocket of the globalists can Antifa be? Right. We got going on in the side chat. Castaways join us. Good morning. Liberal chanting is so annoying. No fascist USA. Yeah, I've got it memorized now, Castaway, I think. Trump is headed to Paris, says Tommy Boy. Yeah, Delaware, you should go visit him in D.C. there. You could probably you'd have a good time. Yeah, Rooster should have definitely been in the news if she had even discharged around a little less, hit somebody, right? But at some point, it's going to happen if they continue to escalate like this. And how many times have I hypothesized about that whole timeline about how that's going to go down? As soon as somebody hits the floor doing this stuff, no matter which side it is, as soon as somebody's in a body bag, the police state response is going to be drastic. I think that's what we really got to look out for. Yeah, Saint, you got to have a little ass behind you to take down a door, right? 140 pounds soaking wet Antifa type probably isn't going to get much accomplished trying to break down a door. Especially if, figure Tucker Carlson could afford a little bit of a security door. So it probably wasn't, your average middle class suburban home, it was probably a little reinforced. Just surprising they didn't break out any windows or anything. That was a pretty big crowd. I would have, yeah. Oh, yeah, right. Delaware brings up, this is another thing that dropped last night. Chris Christie's a possible replacement for Sessions. You talk about a fox in the hen house. Like, Trump can't do anything right, or either he's ignorant or he's in on it. You got to look at it that way. You hear things like that out there, and maybe that's just a floated something out there to distract people, but you can't consider Chris Christie and trying to get anything good, worthwhile done when you do that, I don't think. But real quick, let's go through some other stuff before we check out here. We could talk about Antifa all day. Debt ceiling getting ready to hit record high. Saying we're going to be able to fund government to just summer. So we're going to get ready to go into the whole debacle of the debt ceiling arguments in Congress with the House. So you can imagine what that sideshow is going to be like coming up when they go into 6. I guess so the ceiling has been suspension. The debt has grown under President Trump. Is set to be reinstated on March 2nd, 2019. So we're going to have more of these sideshow discussions in Congress about how we're going to kick the can down the road on the debt. And you can imagine with the House being taken over by the Democrats, that's going to be the biggest. What's the word for it when they get on their soapbox up there and just pine away how terrible the debt is? And you're looking at the Democrats like, you guys love debt. Well, everybody loves debt in D.C. That's the problem. So they say the Treasury will be able to fully fund the government until at least midsummer of 2019 by using extraordinary measures, cash on hand and incoming cash flow, but cost of taxpayers will start earlier from factors associated with reaching the debt limit, such as higher U.S. interest rates on U.S. Treasuries. So yeah, we're basically paying more for the debt we've accumulated. We're paying back. Everybody knows the debt's at this point, you just got to figure they're just going to rack it up until they have to cancel it out. And then they'll just wash out the system and restart something new, because nobody can be taking this seriously, thinking that we're going to pay this down. They're just going to do a reset on their own at some level. The government will conspire with the Fed somehow to just reset everything and just wipe it all away and wipe out everybody that if you get wiped out, you get wiped out. Something like that's got to be coming, because as soon as the people lose faith in this system and the dollar and start really changing their ways, not only with in regards to paying taxation, but getting out of systems of using the dollar and using other things for trade and stuff, it's really going to have an effect on this whole scam. But get ready for that show coming up in the summer of more debt ceiling talks. Found this interesting. This popped up on the very front of CNBC top story when I checked in. Keystone XL is back in the news as it's been stopped because they didn't do the proper evaluations, which was the whole argument to begin with on stopping it, is they didn't do the proper environmental studies and everything before they started doing it. And our environmental impact. And the judges halted it on that grounds in Montana, not in the Dakotas, where kind of the big protests were at the native reservations and everything there when they started. The ruling sets back for TransCanada, could possibly delay the construction. But I found that interesting. This popped up top story on the CNBC. And, so they got to do the full analysis of the environmental impact. How long is that going to take and whatnot? This is going to affect oil prices, I'm sure, because everybody had it baked in that there's some additional supply or something like that, and efficient supply. But what does the markets look like this morning? Everything should be, looks like the Dow's down to start. Look over at oil real quick. It's been down. It's down hard again today. So that didn't affect it there. Down below 60 for the first time in a long time. So maybe we'll get a little bit of cheap gas for this winter before we kick back up to $4 a gallon in the summer. Oh, and that bond market's still 3.2. What's going on in the side chat? What are we talking about? Who's holding your latte, Delaware Patriot? Who said, whose last words, bro, hold my latte? Is that talking about Christie still? When do you think SHTF will happen? Hey, it's always around the corner. Look at California. Like, I don't know. Thrift Kid, if you got, I guess you're new to kind of to these chats or these channels. You can go look back at a lot of my playlist. SHTF isn't happening as we speak. Depends on where you are. It's always around the corner. It's always local, whether it's a hurricane, tornado, fire, economics. Look at Venezuela. It's going on all around us. It's just a matter of how it affects you. Do we think the dollar will collapse? As we just kind of talked about that. It's just a matter of the faith of the people. Hey, Wes S., good morning. What's going on? If everyone who had a 401k would cash it and everyone with retirement investment. Oh, yeah. Wes, yeah, that'd be huge. That's the only thing. That's one of the big things propping up the markets as it is all the free money from mandatory savings, from mandatory retirement accounts. All these people that are forced into the markets because you got contributions on the 401k, which are matched by your employer, which just flows into these big, huge these funds that go into the markets, and just it's like guaranteed money for them. Like, oh yeah, this money's getting invested regardless, because they can't hold it so much because of rules. They can't hold a bunch in cash with these funds, so they have to put it in the markets somewhere, and it just gets funneled in automatically twice a month and once a month whenever the automatically withdrawals are, and that props up the market for sure, Wes. If everybody was to, and we talked about this a while back, the biggest problem with that is people could, but people don't want to take the tax hit, because if you withdraw early on any of those retirement plans, you get like a 30% tax hit. You get capital gains on them, no matter what your income level is, because it's an early withdrawal, quote, end quote, because they got to get their taxes out of it. So people don't want to take that hit, even though they know that the system is screwing them. They don't want to take that tax hit. But if everybody was to do that, Wes, you're absolutely right. That would be enough to, yeah, the system would collapse. People, George Soros wouldn't know what to do with himself, or Warren Buffett, or any of them. They'd be like, what just happened? Locked and Loaded said that's why nobody wants to buy bonds at 3%. Right? Nobody has enough trust in the government, but the Fed keeps saying they're going to raise rates. You notice that, Justin, this week? They're like, well, we're not going to raise them right now, but we will in the future. They're delaying because they know they can't raise rates. The market can't handle it. The market just can't handle it, and the Fed can't. The Treasury can't handle paying the debt at those rates. Hey, Alicia, good morning. How's it going? Everybody, make sure you go check out Toxic Threads and her channel. She's trying to rebuild. Always putting out good videos. Still knocking them out. Make sure you go resubscribe, because I know all my subscribers are sub to her, right? You better be, at least, because you're missing out a lot better commentary than what I can give you if you don't subscribe. Castaway said crazy terror attack. Oh yeah, I think I saw that on the Twitter. Castaway, is that where the guy blew up his car and attacked the policeman? It was a failed attack, but it was I think I saw the video of that. He got out and he's trying to attack the policeman, and they stun gunned him or whatever. I believe that's the same one you're talking about. Is there, if there's something more significant, let me know. But it looked kind of humorous from the video I saw of him attacking the police. It's almost like your stereotypical Middle Eastern type, flailing their arms. They don't know how to get into a fist fight. Going at these two Australian policemen, and they're just like sidestep, bam, take him down. But I did see that on the Twitter. I didn't see anything else. All right, so there's that. So another significant concerning news, the final one I think I have pulled up here, coming out. This is a France 24 article. It's also on the Drudge for the link if you are browsing there. Talking about baby booms for some nations, busts for others. There's a companion article out of the BBC that talks about birth rates as well. But it's like we've documented for years now, the West, as we like to euphemize it, but any place essentially where there are European descendants are lowering their birth rates, while third world countries, developing countries, as they say here, have a baby boom, and people in other rich countries aren't having enough kids to maintain the population levels. Like Sweden, for example, who can't replace their population, is going to go into severe collapse if they don't up their game. So if you're not having kids, you're not doing your part. That means multiples. That means you got to have more than two in particular. Because if you're just replacing you and your spouse, we're not getting anywhere. We can't. That's a negative. That's a net negative in the long run. Believe it or not, people have been so convinced in the West in particular, that this whole global footprint, unsustainable living, and all these other things, people think they're doing their part by not having more kids, but you're really just destroying the full developed culture, I guess you would say, in some respects. But there's articles out there, and there's another one, like I said, on the Daily Mail, I believe it is, on the Drudge, talking about this. I don't know, talk to whoever you need to talk about that, but it's definitely an issue when people talk about, I don't know, people live in a bubble, I guess, especially in America, thinking that everything's fine. When you see the total population of the U.S. go up, everybody's like, oh, well, I should have, they want to have fewer kids for whatever, but it's just the white people. Really, it's broken down that it's just that easy. And most majority of the population gains in the U.S. is from immigration of one sort or another. They've convinced everybody not to have kids. So like, well, we got to get people immigrating so that we can have people to work. As far as that system goes. But here it says 91 nations, mainly in Europe and North and South America, weren't producing enough children to sustain their current populations, according to the study. But in Africa and Asia, rates continue to grow, with the average woman in Niger giving birth to 7 children during her lifetime. I don't think most of our wives would want to have 7 kids, but it's just an example of the differentiation of how things work. And they found this study, Cyprus was the least fertile nation on earth. The average woman giving birth just once in her life. Places like Malai, Chad, and Afghanistan, which you would think those are really some of the most impoverished countries in the world, they average more than 6 babies per. The United Nations predicts there will be 10 billion humans on the planet by the middle of the century. And that raises the question, how many people the world can support, yada, yada. We've all heard that argument. In Asia and Africa, it says the population is still increasing and people are moving from poverty to better income unless there are wars or unrest. Countries are expected to fare better economically, and it's more likely that fertility rates will decline and level out, is their hypothesis. But haven't they been improving over the last several decades anyway? Also, we are living longer. The study also showed that male life expectancy has increased to 71 years old from 48 in 1950. That's a drastic increase. And also women are expected to live to 76 compared to 53 in 1950. Yeah, but showing the stats right after World War II probably skews that a little bit. The amount of death from 10 years of war, I think, might skew that a little bit as to what the life expectancy numbers would be. Probably need to balance that out a little bit. Probably not the best comparison. Maybe a little rigged stat there. What's going on out in the side chat? Oh, am I frozen? Oh, I froze there a little bit, I think. I think I'm back on. That was weird. But yeah, kind of a skewed stat to use life expectancies from the after World War II to now. What else is going on in the side chat? Oh, you guys are tearing it up. All right, Wes S is out. Wes is going to get new barrels for his boat. All right, on. Have a good day, Wes. Tommy Boy's, oh wait. Tommy Boy's going back to bed when we're done. I might just stay up then, Tommy Boy, just to keep you up. Might be, we need to keep you up and active. Barry Wood says the world is nowhere near overpopulated. I believe you're correct, Barry. Everybody's been forced into big cities, though, and they get a skewed perspective on what life is about. Hey, HRM, how you doing? Good morning. HRM says, sit down and listen. The less you say, the better. I guess it depends on who's talking HRM. There's some people I just can't listen to. Rooster works with the Asian guy that doesn't understand English, I guess. Yeah, Barry, all those factors into life expectancy for sure. Well, don't forget nutrition too, just diet. Yeah, Alicia brings up a good point. Korea is desperate for kids, and also I think Japan was one of the few Asian countries too that wasn't having enough replacement births. They mentioned that article, Asia, but I think they're talking about Greater Asia. There's specific examples like Japan and Korea where they're actually not meeting replacement rates as well. Some of that, then a lot of that has to do, like they say, that's the advanced nature of the country. All those Koreans just sitting there playing video games all day. Or in Japan, there's a lot of different factors, but yeah, they haven't met replacement rates for a couple of decades now, I believe. They're having similar problems. Oh, what HRM you sit down and listen when the wife's got issues? All right. It's a tough road, but yeah, I get what you're saying there. You just sometimes just got to sit down and just don't say anything is the best policy. Yeah. Thrift Kid, do you guys plan on being self-sufficient, or would that even be necessary? There's a lot. Yeah, go check out Wes S. He's got a lot of videos on kind of that issue. We got the mutual assistance concept, mutual assistance groups. You're not necessarily self-sufficient, but you're gonna need at least to have a lot of varied skills within a group to get everything accomplished you need to get accomplished, depending on what kind of SHT, if it is, of course. But it's definitely going to be necessary to be able to have some skills. You know, one man can't do everything, but you need to have a mutual assistance that can help support each other with different capabilities, whether that's growing stuff or fixing stuff or making stuff or whatever. Justin said you can put the whole population in Rhode Island. I'm not sure about that now, Justin. Well, it depends on how you say you can put them shoulder to shoulder, sure, but also, I mean, you can do the math. You can put everybody in Alaska with 2 acres of land, and everybody fits in Alaska. That you can do that. So that's just an example. You can live. We could live in Alaska. Well, some places in Alaska it's hard to live. It is tundra, but acreage wise, you could have 2 acres for everybody, which is sustainable. You grow your own plot, and do everything you needed. But that's the thing is, we've got everybody crammed to these cities that don't know how to provide for themselves, even in the slightest. Some people can grow a balcony garden, but a lot of people can't. And that's a lot of the problems. Hey, Mike Baseman, good morning. Oh, HRM, I don't know if I could agree with that. If your wife argues with you, it's a gift. Sometimes it doesn't feel like it. But at least she talks to you. I guess that's the gift side of it. It's the only alternate view I get, I guess. Oh, I just got this on the news feed. Breaking news. Trump has just signed a executive rule that bars migrants who cross into the U.S. illegally through the southern border from seeking asylum. So basically, if you break in, you can't claim asylum after the fact. You got to do it, at a point of entry or go to a consulate or whatever to claim asylum. It says legal challenges are expected. Legal activity should not give you benefits. I think that would be the way to go with it. But that just broke, so we could probably look at a little more detail to see what exactly that said. But that was the headline, or that was a tweet. So should be more on that. Everything's going on Friday. Typical Friday news dump. Michael here is going off on Trump, I guess, whatever he's got to say. Bader Ginsburg fell and broke her ribs yesterday. She went to the hospital. A lot of people parroting on about that. That was a big tweet feed until the fire started yesterday. But lots of links on the Drudge. Obviously, we had the shooter in California, down there in L.A., murdering people down there in that situation. But there was a lot of stuff tucked away in here, down in here. Here's those fertility rate articles down here on the Drudge on the right side. Russia was putting up a hypersonic vehicle into test. Where was that? Where did I see it? Was that on the Zero Hedge? Had a bunch of stuff lined up too that was pretty on point. So you go check that out. Find what you can. What's going on, and see what catch up on the side chat. Locked and Loaded, you're going live at noon. Everybody I guess you're saying noon Eastern there, right, Justin? Because noon for me is 5 hours away. You're probably talking like 2 hours away, right? There's the Keystone XL thing. Looks like we had an active shooter situation in North Carolina. Just a lot of things popping up. Oh, I didn't see this earlier. Congo's Ebola outbreak may not be containable. Well, that's going to leave a mark. If that, we'll have to keep an eye on this. Well, this will be our final thing. We'll take the rest of the day and we'll call it quits. But let's look into this real quick. CDC director says the Congo's Ebola outbreak may not be containable. You got to figure how much of that is fear mongering. I mean, if it's uncontainable, then why wouldn't we just quarantine the entire continent, or quarantine the Congo or something? But yet we still allow free travel and trade and everything. If you see this coming, then why would you allow it to get out of control? You know what I'm saying? It's like people are saying things and their actions give up their real motivations, maybe, potentially. Or they reveal something about them. I haven't exactly figured it out. But anyway, Robert Redfield, the director of Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, said that people need to be prepared for the worst. Redfield said the Democratic Republic of Congo's newest Ebola outbreak may not be containable. Okay, you tell me that and you say be prepared for the worst. I'm thinking we're dropping napalm on the whole country to eradicate it. I mean, what does prepared for the worst mean in that case? So maybe the director of Johns Hopkins for Health and Security in Baltimore said that if Ebola outbreak becomes endemic in the Congo's North Kivu province, it shows we've lost the ability to trace contacts, stop transmission chains, and contain the outbreak. In this situation, Ebola could spread, which could negatively impact both trade and travel. How do I stop this mess? In this situation, Ebola could spread, which could negatively impact both trade and travel, according to a report by Becker's Hospital Review, which there is a link to, beckershospitalreview.com. So there's a link to that in there. quoted out of that. I do not think this is one of the challenges we'll have to see, whether we're able to contain, control, and end the current outbreak with the current security situation, or do we move into the idea that this becomes more of an endemic Ebola outbreak in this region, which we've never really confronted, is what Redfield told the Washington Post. The Washington Post article is linked right here. According to the Post, if international Ebola containment efforts fail in the Congo, it would mark the first time the virus was not stopped since 1976 when it was first identified. The current outbreak is going on its 4th month, totaling 3,000 cases, 186 deaths as of November 4th. So the problems that are ongoing right now, in particular with this Ebola outbreak, is from the fact that the disease is spreading in an active war zone. Several armed groups attacking health officials, government aides, and civilians, and probably stealing their resources, cars, vehicles, money, and everything else while they're at it. Some civilians with Ebola have refused treatment, and healthcare workers are still being infected. If healthcare workers are being infected still, that's hugely concerning. That was a problem with the last really big outbreak we had. Really having problems with wearing the proper equipment and everything while providing treatments. About 60 to 80% of new cases do not show an epidemiological link to prior cases. So basically, they don't know where they got it from. It's like, who were you around that had Ebola? They can't trace it. That's what that really gets down to. The daily rate of new Ebola cases has more than doubled in early October. In addition, there is community resistance and a deep mistrust of the government as the raging outbreak continues to spread through an active war zone. The WHO, the World Health Organization, CDC, and other international health organizations say they are worried about the current Ebola outbreak spreading to port cities like Butembo, which will only exacerbate infection transmission rates. And as the map shows, it is spread around the world. A good graphic right there. Right. There's a lot you could get into a lot there, but the biggest thing is if it's uncontainable, what do you do? You can't just allow, if you're a neighboring country, why would you not shut down your borders? But there's economics involved. There's cultures issues involved. People there that a lot of that don't trust the government is because there is a civil war going on. There's probably plenty of people who believe that the Ebola is caused by the government because they're fighting the civil war and they're trying to kill them all via a virus since they can't kill them in the war. There's probably all kinds of talk and perceptions that go on around this. It's a mess. But again, if you see it as being uncontrollable, what does prepared for the worst mean? And in my mind, you're talking napalming the jungle and stuff, but that's not probably in their game plan. What we got in the side chat before we wrap this up. Hey, Walter Davis, good morning. Thanks for checking in. It looks like you're getting dumped on quite a bit. Either you got rain and snow mix, something like that going on. Barry Wood says they pay them Africans to lay around and fake sick. I don't know that all the graves would necessarily agree with you on that, Barry. HRM says he swatted the CBS channel for promotion of IM. What's IM? What's the Ebola kill rate? Asked Alicia. Alicia, in a country like the Congo, Ebola is at about a 70% death rate. In the U.S., it should be closer to down around 25. It just depends on how much supportive care you can get, as they say. When you look at some of the documents they put out from the last time the Ebola got really bad, if you get hospital care in the U.S., as long as the system isn't overwhelmed, it's where there's enough stuff, you get good IV treatments and stuff like that. It's much more survivable in the Western world. They estimate around 20%. Just a matter of when they diagnose you. If you're diagnosed early, it's fairly well survivable. If you're in later stages when you're bleeding out and bleeding from your pores and stuff, you're done. It doesn't matter how much treatment you get.
But if you detect it earlier when you first get sick and stuff, it's a little bit easier. Stealth Hunter 1000, good morning. How are you? HRM talking about the Democrats again. Just leave. Yeah. Political terrorism, et cetera, which I guess we can close out with seeing how everybody's doing out there. If you're not in the precipitation areas, you're probably in an area that's kind of cold this morning. Walter says it's starting to rain, but cold, not cold enough to snow. Yeah, that's what the map's kind of showing there, Walter. It does have this streak of snow and ice and stuff, though, in central PA, so maybe that's coming your way. Snow at Justin's house. We're all going to Justin's house. All right. He's got snow. That's why he's doing a live stream. He's staying indoors. Tommy Boy says if we could all turn all this off, I bet life expectancy would be longer, right? If we weren't focusing on some of this stuff and just the constant stress of the whole thing, right? Wake Up Canuck. Hey, good morning. You know, Wake Canuck, I didn't know that you did videos until Tony posted that one the other day, you in Vegas. So I apologize. I'm ashamed. I didn't realize that you had videos, and I just looked, and you've been doing videos for years. So now I got to go back and watch them all, but I don't know if I'll be able to do that. But thanks, Tony, for sharing that. Yeah, Wake Up. You ain't going to see me in Vegas. I'm way north of that mess, but thanks for visiting. Visit while you can before Vegas becomes more of a cesspool now that Sisolak's going to run. Well, he'll probably prop up Vegas at the expense of everybody else is pretty much what's going to happen for the next 4 years minimum. So Vegas is going to sustain, but the rest of Nevada is probably going to suffer the next few years. Mike, you're in sunny California. You're near the fires. We covered the fires at the very beginning of the chat. Wild Iron Horseman's up in that area too by the campfire. Tactical Tony's checking in late as usual. Yo. And I got to get out of here, folks. It's late. But thanks for checking in. Thanks for dropping by. Drop by the channel anytime. You never know what might be going on. Tommy Boy says, too bad that smoke wasn't all weed. Well, it is the state of Jefferson up there north. There could have been a little mixed in. All right, HRM's going to go get busy. I'm going to go get busy. Y'all have a good week. Close out your week. Have a good weekend if we don't talk to you between now and then. And go out, live free.